Hi, Kevin here from Harrington Classic Car Restorations in Asheboro, North Carolina. This is our new job. It is a 66 C10 cab, and we're going to be putting new doors on it, new floor, new cab corners. It's going to get blasted in epoxy. And if you come over here and look, you can see that it definitely needs floors and part of a firewall. It needs both kick panels over there and over here. We might even have to put a higher transmission hump in there because he wants to change it to a 6-speed transmission. And over here on this side, you can see how it's sitting on the ground down here with my little dog. Come here, little dog. That rocker panel is just, it's flattened out. It's just because it's so rotted out. So we'll be replacing those also. And then once all that's done, get some body work done to the roof and the body panels, and we're going to change the color of this dash. And I'm not sure just yet if he's going to switch those panels out on the firewall for the ones that I did on Lewis's 73 Sierra. So we'll have to talk to him about that and see if Josh Hart has panels for that, which I'm sure he does. So stay tuned for this build. Made some templates for the patches that we're going to have to make in the back. We also took this door off because we're going to start with the rocker. Hey there, little dog. We're going to start with the rocker. I need to get some bracing to brace this up before I cut that rocker panel off. Otherwise, we're going to have a huge mess. This thing's going to flap in and out because that floor is basically gone. So we'll get some braces from here to here on both sides, and we're going to do a cross brace from here to that side and from here to that side, so we can square it up and get it all set. Just so we can start with that, then we'll do our cab corners. And we also tonight ended up stripping his new door so we can get this ready for epoxy, and then we'll fit that onto the truck as we're doing the rocker panel. So the bracing in so the cab won't go forward or back, left or right, because we have to take the floor out and this rocker panel out. Okay, now what I did was I ground, hey little dog, I ground these spots off so I could find the spot welds, because we don't want to just cut the thing off, we want to find the spot welds so we can drill those out with an 1/8 inch drill bit with my snap-on drill. Got the 1/8 inch drill bit, and then we'll use what some people call a rotor broaches or the sheet metal hole cutter kit. So we'll use that to get these spot welds out. This is the reason why you don't want to have backyard people do your body work, because that's all body filler in there and it just doesn't last for very long. So it's sheet metal screws, a ton of body filler, and by the looks of it there's screen in there, screen mesh, and that's not what you want done to your vehicle. So that's why you come to Harrington Classic Car Restorations. We get rid of this, hey little dog, and we put new parts in. We do it the right way. We finally got the rocker panel off, and we're fitting the new one. The reason we're fitting the new one is so we can put the door on it and fit the door to the rocker panel and the cab corner. Then we'll mark the cab corner, and we'll keep screwing this in. All right, as you can see though, I do know that the rocker needs to come up just a little bit, but we're going to actually fit the door first to make sure that's what the deal is, and the cab corner doesn't need to go down. Okay, so here's what it looks like behind the new panels. We'll take this one off. As you can see, it's missing down here on the bottom. And you always get the nice surprises in there. I'll take that out. But before we even weld this stuff on, we need to fix that stuff. Obviously that's gone, so I'm going to have to make a new piece for here. So I have something to weld to also back there. I'm going to have to reconstruct that piece there. So I have something to weld to. We fit the door, we fit the rocker, and You're going to have to porta power this part of the cab out so I can get a better gap, because I have a pretty good gap all the way down here, and that's so I can jack this up a little bit more so this body line meets. This is pretty close. This one might have to be reworked a little bit because it's pretty far apart, and these are pretty close. So as you can see, if I jack this up a little bit more, it'll be right where it needs to be. All I have to do is move that out. It'll give me space on this rocker panel, and I have a pretty good space here up in the front, but it gets tighter over here, so I just have to jack this up so those body lines meet, and jack this out so I can get a nice gap all the way around, because it's pretty nice all the way. All right, and we also had, these panels were made so we can fix the rot back here. They're just screwed up there, so I could just test fit them. And once I get both rockers put on, I will cut these and weld them to here. I'll get my cab corners in, and then we can replace the floor. Kevin here from Harrington Classic Car Restorations. We are fitting the rocker panel still, because we got a new A-pillar, lower A-pillar piece here, and this doesn't quite fit that, so we're going to have to cut this so we can slide that up a little bit higher, because it doesn't quite fit here even if you pull this out. So we're going to cut that, slide that up, and get the door gap to fit the rocker gap, because it fits good in the back. It's just not fitting good up here yet, and it's all because of this being held up and bent wrong. Hi, Kevin here from Harrington Classic Car Restorations. We are working on the 66 C10 cab, and we're replacing the inner kick panel and the A-pillar extension because it's rotted out. So your best way to do this, to get your correct measurements, is to bolt the fender bracket up with the A-pillar piece and the inner kick panel piece. That will get you your correct height and adjustment on where everything is supposed to go. And because your rocker, the bottom of your rocker will actually set on the bottom of this thing here. So that's how that's going to fit. That's probably the easiest and best way to figure that out without having to take too many measurements. And this piece here, actually, you can actually see it over here on where that's supposed to go. Right there. So that shape is right there, so you get your height, and I already marked it where I need to go. I marked down here where it needs to go, and I also screwed it in down here where it needs to go. Now the next thing I have to do is I'm going to cut this piece out so I can repair this piece in here, because this plate that holds the hinge, it keeps falling out because the inner piece that holds it, hey little dog, the inner piece that holds it is all rotted out, so I have to repair that also. So stay tuned. Okay, here's the second part of this. After I got all these bolted in, I marked where they need to go, because what I have to do is I have to cut this inner panel out here so I can reach inside of this and repair that piece for the plate for the door hinge. So we'll cut this out, repair that in there, and then we can start working on putting all these pieces in. Tonight we're working on the 66 C10 cab, and we are putting the A-pillar piece on. We're also putting on the inner kick panel, and the best way to get your measurements is to bolt all these three pieces together. This is your fender bracket. Bolt those up. I did have to drill a hole here and ream that hole out. So that's how we got that. That's probably the best way to do it. We're working on the 66 C10 cab, and we are making a nutsert plate. We already have the plates already there, but what was happening with the old one is, seeing as the bottom was rotted out, it would fall out. So I can't put these pieces on until I make a new piece for that. So there's that. So, and here's the new piece. And we drill the holes out exactly the same as that. We have our tabs made so we can spot weld it in. And we have enough room to where we can move this thing around. So if the door needs to go up, it can move up, forward or back, and up and down. That fits right up in here. I have my spot weld hole already drilled. That'll go in there. That'll keep that plate where it needs to be, and we'll be all set, ready to roll. This is why I have to remake this piece here, because if it falls out after I weld this up, we're going to be in a world of hurting. So, and as you can see, I already made my mark for this, where I'm going to cut this off. Hey, little dog. And I also, when I cut this piece, I cut this on an angle, so it becomes flush with this piece here, and I can butt weld it on, and it makes for a cleaner weld and a nicer looking part of your truck. And also, if you go on the inside here, you'll see that somebody already did a whole bunch of work in there, and they just fiberglassed it, body worked it. It's just not the way to do it. If you look out here on this panel, this is what we had. It was all pop riveted on, not welded, fiberglassed or all metal. So this just isn't the right way to do it. As you can see, there's rust underneath the metal, which is why you epoxy the metal before you put body filler on it, because it just ends up lifting and it just makes for a real bad job. And we cut these pieces out so we can make room for our new Auto Metal Direct parts. So stay tuned for more. I cut this panel here with a die grinder on an angle so I can butt weld this piece, the new AMD part, to the old panel. This will get all ground down, sandblasted, and epoxied. So that's what's going to go on there. So stay tuned. Because we got a new hinge, we had to take the door off and realign it. And then luckily we got these pieces because we have a pretty nice gap all the way down. And we figured put the fender on so we can get the gap between the fender and the door and the cab corner there. And we'll also make sure that we have a nice flush mount here. As you can see, that the door meets the fender flush here. What that means is that the inner structure, the A pillar, needs to get pushed out, and I figured I would check that before I did any welding. We did have to porta power this piece out from the inside so we can get that rocker to line up to the door and the door to line up to the fender. So we're getting ready to tack weld the piece in with our awesome Hobart welder, and I'll show you that in a second. So here's the porta power. We had to porta power that piece out just to get that correct distance. We also trimmed this out so we can butt weld it all the way across. It is screwed in, and we got that to fit really well. So we'll close this up a little bit and show you what we got here. Even the gap has gotten a whole lot better. And the door over there is looking pretty sharp. Got a nice gap all the way across. Pretty nice gap all the way up. Body lines line up. Things coming along really nice. Stay tuned for more. We had to take the door and rocker panel off and the fender so we could cut this piece flush so we can butt weld it. Made sure everything was lined up. We welded this piece in already, and we're ready to rock and roll. Welding that piece in, and we'll put the rocker back on and the door back on to make sure that's still where it needs to be. That all welded in and ground down. We got this all welded in and ground down, and now the next step is we're going to sandblast that, because you can't leave that in there. We'll sandblast that and get ready to screw the rocker back on, because we punched the holes in the rocker. And after that we'll fit the door, fender, and corner piece one more time, and then we'll start welding. Stay tuned. Next on the agenda is we are going to get that rocker panel welded in. We're going to put the fender back on in that fender corner up there, the cowl corner. And then we're going to shoot for getting that cab corner on. That's tomorrow.